The Amorous Doctor. Chapter 9. Enemies will meet in a narrow road. The more he thought about it, the more worried he became. He looked at the time and woke Ling Yun. He told her that he needed to see the girl, otherwise he was afraid she would be in danger. Ling Yun knew that his medical skills were superb. Every time she was sick or injured, Ding Ning helped treat her. It didn't look like he was on the verge of death or even sick, and she was feeling too lazy to bother with him. She immediately turned over lazily, and waved her hand to indicate that he should not disturb her. Then she went down to continue her deep slumber. Ding Ning was speechless about this. This nurse can work the night shift like this and feel at ease. Having done his internship here, Ding Ning was very familiar with the hospital. He took the elevator and went directly to the Department of Cardiothoracic Surgery's inpatient ward on the 12th floor. Perhaps it was really a narrow road. When he stepped out of the elevator, Ding Ning met the very same Li Wenxing who had ruined his future. Li Wenxing had been very depressed lately. Ever since a small intern pointed out that he had misdiagnosed a patient, the family members of the patient had been looking for troubles every day. Not only did they blackmail him for a lot of money, but he had also been physically assaulted numerous times so that every day he had to scurry and hide like a street rat. Every time he saw someone moving fast, he would think they were coming for him again, and he would begin trembling in fear. The worst part was that it was a serious medical accident. He was suspended from the hospital on the spot. If his uncle, the hospital's deputy dean, had not protected him, he would have been fired long ago. Therefore, what he hated the most was the intern who did not know his place. He had begged his uncle to use his social resources and right to suppress Ding Ning in every aspect. To put it bluntly, for a certain period of time, Ding Ning was simply Li Wenxing's nightmare. Fortunately, after all was said and done, Li Wenxing still became an attending physician at ease. As for Ding Ning, whom he hated, he didn't know where that guy ended up crying in regret. It was very clear to him that he was only able to return to his current department and live a respected doctor's life because of his uncle's credit. So he was now a little more restrained, not so arrogant. He wasn't supposed to work the night shift tonight, but he had remembered that the little nurse who just hooked up with him was on the night shift tonight, and his heart was itching. He thus took the initiative and changed shifts to be the doctor on duty. He wanted to have a friendly match with the coquettish little nurse. As for the yellow-faced woman at home, he ignored her. If his wife's family did not have some money and power that could be beneficial to him, he would have long gotten a divorce. To be able to become an attending physician in his 30s, although not top-notch, was already considered a very good success. Much of his success was not on his credit, because it was exchanged by the strong social network of his uncle and the financial resources of his wife's family. He did not see anything wrong with it. That's how society was like. If you have the money, you can do anything. The title of an attending physician was not uneasy to get. Now, all he had to do was go to work, flirt with a beautiful nurse, and play one or more friendly matches after winning her heart. When his pocket becomes empty, then collect the patient's red envelope. What a great and happy life it was. The most important thing was that he could find an excuse for not staying home at night. What a great job it was. Thinking of the little nurse who was coquettishly waiting for him in the nurse's duty room, Li Wenxing's heart had a burst of heat. He couldn't help whistling as he lowered his head and walked toward the lounge. With a bang, the elevator door opened. Li Wenxing was shocked. It was 12 o'clock. Why were people coming? Looking up, Li Wenxing suddenly began shivering and his scalp went numb. Ding Ning was stunned. The last person he wanted to see was this guy. He didn't expect that he would be the first one he'd meet when he came. Enemies really did meet on a narrow road. Grinning at Li Wenxing and laughing, he said sinisterly, "Dr. Li, I haven't seen you for a long time." "Mom, ghost!" Li Wenxing screamed, his eyes rolled up, and fainted to the ground with a poof. Ding Ning was struck dumb. What went wrong here? Are people who have guilty consciences really this timid? He turned and looked around the corridor, and then he picked up the phone and used it as a mirror to look at himself. That's how he suddenly realized something. It turned out that Li Wenxing, afraid of being discovered, had turned off the lights in the corridor for his rendezvous with the little nurse. Only the green safety light was on, and when Ding Ning came out of the elevator, because of the backlight, Li Wenxing did not see who he was. When the elevator door closed, the light became dim. Ding Ning, who was wearing a hospital gown and had a very swollen face, suddenly said something while standing under the safety light. Under the green light, he looked like a ghost. Li Wenxing, who did not know common scenes any better, was scared and fainted. Ding Ning, who had wanted to understand what was going on, wanted to laugh. He squatted, checked the man on the floor, and confirmed that the man just fainted from sheer fright. Ding Ning then did not want to take care of him. Going to the nurse duty room alone, he wanted to ask which ward Shimuqing was staying. Li Wenxing's shout had woken many patients. Wan Wan, the nurse waiting for Li Wenxing, was no exception. Compared to Li Wenxing, Wan Wan's courage was not much better. When she heard Li Wenxing scream, she was so scared that she had hidden under the bed in the duty room, shivering. She began to conjure up images of evil spirits eating people. After all, hospitals have always been a place with many dead people. Especially today, a patient had just died of his disease. The patient had died because Li Wenxing made a mistake during surgery. As Li Wenxing's Fu*K mate and surgical nurse, she naturally had inside information. But what was one dead person to the hospital? She was a girl from the countryside, and she didn't want to go back to the poor mountain village where she can't even feed herself. She wanted to stay in this bustling big city and live a superior life, so she had to hold a thigh. Li Wenxing was obviously this thigh. Although not very thick, he had a deputy dean uncleat was enough. Those who have not done anything need not be afraid of ghosts knocking at the door in the middle of the night. However, Wan Wan clearly knew that the patient should not have died but was killed by Li Wenxing. It made her somewhat guilty. After all, strictly speaking, she had not reported it. Her guilty conscience, coupled with thoughts of vengeful evil spirits based on the feudal superstitions of her village, made her even more fearful. She secretly regretted sending the other nurses away in order to meet up with Li Wenxing. Ding Ning was afraid of waking up the patients. With light footsteps, he came to the nurses' duty room and started knocking on the door. Wan Wan was so scared that she urinated on the spot. Don't look for me. Don't kill me. I beg you, let me go. It was Li Wenxing. Yes, it was he who killed you. It has nothing to do with me. Wan Wan hid under the bed and covered her face, crying, out of breath while pleading and shaking. Ding Ning was shocked. The flame of anger surged out from his eyes. This damn Li Wenxing, how did he become an attending physician? Without skills, he shouldn't do this job. He immediately slammed the door open while quietly recording with his phone. With a quiet voice, he sinisterly said, "Speak! How did he kill me? Please! I beg you not to eat me. I had nothing to do with it. It was when he made a minimally invasive valve for you that he made mistakes. It is unclear if your heart muscle was punctured. After the valve replacement, when I checked again, I found that the pericardium was continuously filling with blood. So then, the chest was opened again to stop the bleeding. Although measures were taken such as sewing and hemostasis, it was already too late. The surface of the heart and the cut surface were obviously bleeding. Your heart was already diseased with severe myocardial fat infiltration. It caused myocardial rupture, ultimately leading to your death from acute circulatory failure. It really had nothing to do with me." Wan Wan was scared out of her wits, trembling. She dared not open her closed eyes. She had no second thoughts to sell out Li Wenxing. Ding Ning's face was so dark that someone could squeeze water out of it. In the past, a midline chest incision was used for all heart valve replacement surgeries without any exception. Opening the chest meant the patient endured a lot of trauma and had slowed recovery, but it provided a good surgical vision. With the maturation of technology and the advancement of surgical instruments, various small incisions were gradually adopted. These included subcostal incision, axillary incision, medium and small incision, etc. The surgical effect was guaranteed, and it minimized trauma to the patient. After years of clinical application, minimally invasive heart valve replacement surgery had become more mature, and the mortality rate had dropped to a very low level. Basically, as long as the timing of surgery was appropriate, the success rate was close to 100%. It was an operation with such a high success rate, yet Li Wenxing could actually kill people. This bastard, how did he deserve to be a doctor? I really don't know why the patient's family did not ask him to take the responsibility. This is a serious medical mishap. It is no wonder that Li Wenxing was so scared that he fainted. He has a guilty conscience. Ding Ning took a few deep breaths and managed to suppress the urge to immediately kill Li Wenxing. He reached out and knocked out Wan Wan, who was still shaking. Although she had not reported it, in the end, it was not her fault. Li Wenxing, such a scum like you must not be allowed to continue to live. Otherwise, who knows how many more people you will kill. Ding Ning went to Li Wenxing, who was still in a dead faint, and used the meridian severing hand for the first time. A hidden chi cut out a small piece of nerve from his chest. Although it did not pose any harm to him for the time being, with each time his emotions fluctuated, he will slowly develop headaches, chest tightness, palpitations, and other symptoms. Eventually, it will lead to myocardial infarction and death. He was ready. If Wan Wan's confession cannot bring him to justice, he will still get the punishment he deserves. It was only fair to those who had died in his hands. Having finished with this incident, the anger in Ding Ning's heart gradually dissipated and he began looking for Shen Muqing's bed in the ward. Although he had been Lightfoot, The scream of Li Wenxing had awakened many patients. However, most of the patients here were people with heart problems, and naturally, they will not take the initiative to go out and find some thrill. Fortunately, the lights were on in the ward, making it easier for Ding Ning to find Shen Wuqing. After searching the entire floor, there was still no trace of Shen Wuqing. Has she been discharged from the hospital? No, she has to stay at least a few days in the hospital. Ding Ning frowned and suddenly face-bombed. I am so stupid. Judging from Yi Shulan and her son's temperament and dressing, the girl obviously had an extraordinary background. How could she stay in the general ward? She must be sent to the senior officials' inpatient ward. He quickly walked to the dermatology department on the 13th floor. He remembered that because of the small number of inpatients in the dermatology department, it occupied only half of the 13th floor. The other half was designated as the senior officials' inpatient ward, used only for dignitaries.